What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and guys, it was a crazy opening Saturday night weekend here in the NHL. We had, I think, 14 games on tap tonight, and my goodness, it was pretty crazy throughout. Definitely got interesting toward the end of the night, and we'll get there as we get through it. But really, and extremely interesting night in the NHL, and a long one, in fact. So let's get going here early. We got the Arizona Coyotes and the Buffalo Sabres up in Buffalo. The Buffalo Sabres feeling pretty confident. They had a really nice victory over the Montreal Canadiens in their home opener, their season opener, a 5-1 victory. And we saw something similar here tonight in this game. It was actually a matinee game, a 1 o'clock game in Buffalo. And an interesting goalie tandem going into this one. The starting goalies, Karel Vejmelka, the 25-year-old goaltender. He was in goal to start for the Arizona Coyotes. And it was Dustin Tokarski starting in between the pipes for the Buffalo Sabres. So interesting stuff between those two goalies being in. Not really what I was expecting to see, but there you go. That's how it worked out. And that was just the backdrop to this game. Depth scoring for both sides. You look at the goal scorers throughout this game, there were only 2 goals in regulation. Andrew Ladd got a goal in the first period, out of all people. Andrew Ladd, congratulations, getting your first goal of this season. At this rate, he's probably going to put up 41 points, right? 1 goal every 2 games. 41 goal season, right? So we'll see how that keeps up for Andrew Ladd. And Cody Eakin getting a power play goal for the Buffalo Sabres. For the most part, though, this was a fairly quiet game in the sense that there wasn't a ton of offense. There were a decent amount of shots, though, 21 to 33. But considering how the rest of the night went, that's actually fairly low. Those were numbers we were seeing at the end of the second period for a bunch of games. So a pretty defensively structured game overall. The Arizona Coyotes, they got some power play issues. I believe they went 1 for 3 the other night in Columbus. They go 0 for 2 tonight in Buffalo. So, yikes, not a great start here for the Arizona Coyotes. They lose both of these games here on their East Coast road trip to start the season. The Arizona Coyotes did not have a great first period either. They were down 14-5 in shots after the first period. Not a great look. Speaking of a good look, though, Rasmus Dahlin looked very poised with the puck tonight. He seemed to have a lot of confidence. He was taking his time a little bit more with the puck. Again, it wasn't like he had the puck and then had to get it off to somebody else. He was handling the puck, looking up ice, looking to see where he could maybe find a play. We're seeing something very similar right now in New Jersey with Jack Hughes. The development of these two players is incredible, and Rasmus Dahlin is showing a little bit of that. And speaking of Rasmus Dahlin, him and Jacob Bryson played an awful lot of hockey in this game. Dahlin put over 24 minutes on the ice tonight, and Jacob Bryson was not too far behind, 22 minutes of ice time for Bryson. So those two guys, you know they are workhorses for the Buffalo Sabres right now, and they're getting their minutes. And I think this is really, a lot of responsibility for very young players. They're either going to flourish and take advantage of it, or they're going to collapse. And I think we're going to see that as the season goes along. And Jacob Chychrun, over 27 minutes of ice time. Not too big of a shock there, especially with the lack of depth in Arizona right now. The Buffalo Sabres were dominant in overtime. There were a couple back and forth opportunities, but it was very much, a lot of possession for the Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres' energy in that building was extremely strong. They were very much animated into that game. The Buffalo Sabres looked pretty good through their first 2 home games this season. They get a shootout victory in this one, a 2-1 victory at home in a matinee game for the Buffalo Sabres fans. Guys, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Buffalo Sabres are 2-0-0 to start this season. That's 2 victories, 0 losses. They are undefeated right now. They did play the Coyotes. They did play the Montreal Canadiens. But especially with everything that happened this summer off the ice, absolutely huge start and a huge momentum builder for the Florida Panthers. Buffalo Sabres. Moving on to the Florida Panthers. That was the next team here. The New York Islanders, their second game this season, a 14 game road trip to start the year for the Isles. Game 2, down in Florida. They played a terrible game in Carolina. They lost that one 6-3. And unfortunately, at 6 p.m. tonight down in Sunrise, Florida, we saw somewhat of a similar result. Sergei Bobrovsky getting the start for the Florida Panthers in the first 2 games of the season. No Spencer Knight yet. And Ilya Sorokin for the New York Islanders. Obviously, there is some concern about the third goalie right now, Corey Schneider, as the backup because Semyon Varlamov is still injured. Matt Martin is also injured as well. So the Islanders have some injury issues here to start the year. And they seem a little bit banged up starting this season. And that definitely showed in this game and really the first 2 games of the season for the Islanders. The Isles had a fast start. Those first 10 minutes, Bobrovsky definitely bailed out the Panthers. But after that, it was all Florida Panthers. The entirety of the game after that first bit of the first period. Seemed like Florida got a little bit late getting off the bus. Maybe they misread the time. They said, oh, we have a game at 6? Thought we had a game at 7. That's usually when we have games. But I digress. That didn't really matter. The Florida Panthers were the better team tonight. 3 goals for Sam Bennett. A hat trick, if you do the math on that. So, congrats there to Sam Bennett. Just a couple greasy goals. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I really thought he played well in this game. And that's what Joel Quenneville kind of wanted to bring him in to add. And I was concerned about Bennett. Is he a top 6 center? So far through this season, even in the last game they played, obviously he didn't put up the points against Pittsburgh, but his ability as a top 6 center, he's showing right now. He is worth that big paycheck he got this past summer. Ryan Pulock goal, that was kind of the momentum killer for the Islanders. It was I believe it was a 2-1 game at that point, or a 3-1 game at that point. I think it was 3-1. And the Islanders could have made it a 3-2 game. And I thought for sure the Islanders had the goal. And so did the Islanders announcers. They were pretty confident. Yeah, the Islanders are going to get this goal. And because of Radko Gudas getting the penalty before the goal went in, you assumed it was because of interference. Now, that interference is because Anders Lee got pushed into Bobrovsky. So, I understand when you look at the review, it does look like Anders Lee did, in fact, kind of get his skate into Bobrovsky before Gudas got to him. But with that said, you're basically admitting that the referee made a mistake with the penalty. Because then there wouldn't be a penalty if there wouldn't be an interference penalty, right? That's the part that I'm not really understanding. So, definitely frustrating for the Islanders. That killed any momentum that the New York Islanders had. And that was it for the Islanders. Oliver Wahlstrom would get a goal, his first of the season. A power play goal. But other than that, this was a rough night for the Islanders. Once again, Wahlstrom and Huberdeau had a little bit of a scrum in the second period. The Isles were just getting clapped. I actually wrote that here. Isles getting clapped. It was not pretty for the Islanders. Just looked gassed, no energy. Really just not the kind of New York Islanders team we are used to seeing from last year. Ilya Sorokin was kind of all over the place. He wasn't his typical, he's got the glove up. Like I could see Sorokin's stance in my head. He has not looked like that through the first 2 games of the year. He looks very uncomfortable. It's hard to watch Sorokin right now. He was all over the place. Again, that's something that the coaching staff can fix. The goaltending staff as well, one of the top notch in the league. It's just getting that guy some damn confidence. That is really important right now. But the Owls power play as well, 1 for 4 tonight, which again, not a smiley face, a frowny face there because the lack of scoring is apparent, and the Islanders lose this one 5-1. Just to add some salt to the wound, the Buffalo Sabres, the Florida Panthers, Barkov, after his big extension, got his first goal of this season. Duclair, his second of this season. He got one tonight. But Carter Verhaeghe looked very good for the Florida Panthers. Gustav Forsling, 2 assists in this game as well. 5-1 Panthers. Now we go on to the next game on the East Coast. It was the Seattle Kraken continuing their road trip. They started in Vegas. They went to Nashville. Now they head to the East Coast. They went up to CBJ to play the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now the Blue Jackets had disposed of the Arizona Coyotes 8-2 in their home opener. Would they have some similar success tonight against the Seattle Kraken? Maybe. Well, starting goaltending tandem was Philip Grubauer and Elvis Merzlikins. So those two guys have been running the show so far for their respective teams, and that would continue tonight. This was a really good game if you like defensive hockey, defensive structured hockey. Neither one of these teams was being, very easy to give up opportunities. A very low shot game overall. 20 shots for the Kraken at the end of the day, only 25 for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Like I said, we've been seeing this halfway through the game for some other games that were happening tonight, where there was 40 to 45 shots at the end of the night. So a very defensive game. Brad Larson, I was concerned about that signing for Columbus. He's looked very good there. And Dave Haxtell in Seattle, man, just really good stuff from both of these teams. And give some credit to the goalies because they played well tonight as well. Low shots, tight game of inches, really good discipline as well. We didn't see a ton of penalties. There was only one penalty or one power play given out tonight to the Seattle Kraken. The Blue Jackets did not even get a power play. So it was one of those games. Brandon Tanev, he's got his third of the season already. He scored. Eric Robinson would score a goal in the third period, just over halfway into the third to tie the game at 1. But this was a tight game throughout. And again, it kind of came down to overtime. And Max Domi was getting a couple opportunities with Patrick Laine. And Patrick Laine finally put it in the back of the net. His first of the season with the Blue Jackets. And a huge victory, a huge sigh of relief for Patrick Laine, who has been just blasting shots from everywhere, trying to finally get that damn goal. He gets it. A huge one for the Blue Jackets. And now, guys, listen, on the East Coast right now, the Buffalo Sabres are 2-0. The Columbus Blue Jackets are 2-0. And the New York Islanders are 0-2. If I told you that last week, would you have believed me? I don't think I would have believed that myself. The Blue Jackets win it in overtime. Patrick Laine, 2-1 victory at home over the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken now go down to 1-1 this season. Not terrible, not great, but I'm sure they're thinking, yeah, we had an opportunity tonight. We just couldn't get it done. Couple other things I want to mention. The ice time. Andrew Peeke and Vladislav Gavrikov were leading the Blue Jackets. I think it was after the second period in ice time. Really interesting to see those guys and their emergence this season. And for the Seattle Kraken, not a real surprise, but it was Mark Giordano and Jamie Alexiak kind of leading the charge there on ice time. But at the end of the day, huge breakthrough for Patrick Laine. He's actually the cover of today's video. Huge one for the Jackets. So, now we start getting into the more interesting games of the night. I'm just warming you guys up. Pittsburgh. We head to Pittsburgh for this next game. The Pittsburgh Penguins bring in the Chicago Blackhawks. You may be wondering, okay, it's an East versus West. Two pretty dominant teams over the past couple decades. They played in the Stadium Series game a couple years ago. What gives, right? Well, very interesting first period, I'll say that. Teddy Bluger, Drew O'Connor, Brock McGinn, and Danton Heinen each scoring in the first 11 minutes of this game. None of them on the power play, just regular even strength goals. 4-0 Pittsburgh. Danton Heinen gets his third of the game, or his third of the season already. And it was a very short-lived game for Marc-Andre Fleury's return to Pittsburgh. He lasted 11 minutes and 25 seconds into this game before getting pulled from the team that drafted him first overall back in 2003, 2002, something like that. Yeah, not a great game for Marc-Andre Fleury. He's probably pretty pissed off that He could not perform in this game. They were down 4-0. This is the second time now we've seen the Chicago Blackhawks struggle out of the gate. We saw how they kind of put themselves in a hole the other night in Colorado, down 3-0. They weren't able to come back from that one either, and they were chasing most of this game as well. Patrick Kane did score his first of the season, though. Seth Jones getting his second assist of the season. It was a power play goal, so a little bit of confidence, but Jason Zucker would come back. He would score, and then Kirby Dach got a goal, his second of the season from Hagel and Kane. At the end of the day, it was Pittsburgh's game, and Marc-Andre Fleury did not really play that well in this game. For the very limited time he was in, it was Marc-Andre Fleury and Tristan Jarry as your starting tandem. Like I said, Pittsburgh scored 4 goals in the first period. Chicago pulled Fleury, and at the end of the first period, the shots were 13-3. Now, if you want to put that in context, right? Basically, what we're saying is the Blackhawks had less shots than the Penguins had goals at the end of the first period. Not a great look there, right? I mean, again, barely halfway into the first period, and they had 4 goals already. Yikes. So that's something that is quite concerning, but yeah, like I said, I wrote here in my notes, the Hawks were DOA. They were dead on arrival, and I hate to say it, not a great start to the season for the Blackhawks. A lot of hype around the Blackhawks, including from myself, but we're seeing some growing pains from this team. And Fleury just, excuse me, Marc-Andre Fleury not playing at his absolute best, and we kind of saw that in this game. So a 5-2 win for Pittsburgh was the score at the end of the day, out in PPG Paints Arena. All right, so now we get to a little bit less interesting of a game, but still interesting in its own right. That's for the Vancouver Canucks. We're still trying to get a pulse for where is Vancouver right now, because, well, I know where it is. It's in Western Canada, Western BC. But in terms of the pulse of this team, where are the Canucks? Are they a playoff team? Are they not? And we're going to get a pretty good idea of where the Canucks sit before their home opener because of a big East Coast road trip to start the season. They started off in Philly the other night. Now they play in Detroit. And I'm not really sure where I sit with this team still. I think there's still a lot of where, like we just haven't seen enough for me to be confident in saying this is a really good team. The goalie tandem tonight was Thomas Greiss and Yaroslav Halak. So pretty much the backups in this situation. I think Thomas Greiss is still the starter for Detroit, but obviously Demko for the Canucks is the starter. Halak is the backup. One of the more interesting things I saw was Tucker Pullman of the Canucks led the team in ice time at the end of the second period, which I was kind of like, whoa, like where did this guy come from? So thought that was interesting. They also had a different third pairing. You saw Jack Rathbone and Kyle Burroughs play in both of the back-to-back games here between Philly and Detroit. Interesting start here for Vancouver in that regard, because we haven't seen Braden Shen yet as a top 6 defenseman. We've seen these other guys. I remember Kyle Burroughs out when he was with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers before he ultimately went to Colorado, and now he is with the Vancouver Canucks. So a pretty solid player in his own right. Speaking of minutes and guys playing a certain amount, Phillip Herronick, 16 minutes of ice time after 2 periods, and Moritz Seider as well, getting a lot of ice time, 14 minutes at the end of the second period. Things started to get a little bit hairy in the third period. I didn't get to watch much of this game, but I did see the big Filip Zadina hit. This is a team that's gotten banged around to start the year. That whole Dylan Larkin, Matthew Joseph situation the other night, I didn't really touch on that in my game recap, because so much else happened in that game. The 2-3 goal leads for Detroit. But Zadina got an ugly hit, and Connor Garland, I think there was some intent by Garland to do what he did. Now, I also think you have to remember the context here. This is Connor Garland, one of the smaller guys in the league. So he is just used to protecting himself in that situation. Give them my back, and they have to push me over and get a penalty. That's kind of what you're assuming would happen, right? Except Zadina was already reaching out to get the puck. He was already head down, reaching out in a very vulnerable spot, and just caught the back of Garland's his backside. Just caught him, and he did not look good. He was down. I wouldn't be surprised if he missed a game or two, if that. It's probably nothing that serious, hopefully. Hopefully there's no neck or shoulder issue there. But it wasn't a great look. It really wasn't Connor Garland's fault. But that is something you have to throw in there. I figured I'd show that. They were also talking about, I mentioned this the other night, how the Canucks were playing in Philly. And Chason had a jersey that was not his last name. It was spelt wrong on his nameplate. I was listening to the Detroit announcers tonight, and they were actually poking fun at that. And it kind of confirmed. I'm like, I thought I saw that. I can't be the only one that saw that. Yes, the Detroit announcers did notice that as well. They were potentially considering what Tyler Bertuzzi may have been saying to Chason between the benches. Probably had something to do with his own training staff not knowing how to spell his last name. That's how insignificant of a player Chason was. Kind of throwing digs at him. Again, that's the classic, gamesmanship in a game. But I thought that was very interesting that was brought up again. The Vancouver Canucks scored a goal. It's a goal for the Vancouver Canucks. Except it wasn't. Goal immediately called off. I thought it might have been a high stick or something like that. It actually was a high stick from Niels Höglander right into Thomas Grice's face. And goalie interference, no penalty, which they could have called the penalty on Höglander for that. No goalie interference. And Travis Green, being smart, said, you know what, we're going to back off on this. We're not going to get angry because they could have gave us a penalty too. Not only could they have taken away the goal, but given us a penalty. So we're going to leave it alone. And that was really the last break the Canucks would get. Sam Gagner would put in the empty netter to finish this game off. And when it 3-1 for the Detroit Red Wings, it wasn't a pretty game for the Wings. Again, remember, they're without their captain, Dylan Larkin, right now, which makes things difficult. But I think they've handled themselves fairly well in his absence. Tyler Bertuzzi has been really good. I think, he wasn't in the scoring department tonight. He did not score 4 goals again, but obviously that little bit of chippiness in the third period and kind of chirping over to Chason. I thought that was great. Great to see stuff like that. The Vancouver Canucks power play was 0 for 3 tonight. There's been a problem for the Canucks here in the early goings. They played Philly the other night, right? And for some reason, they won 5-4. They didn't pick up a point in this game. So the good news is for the Vancouver Canucks is they kind of continue this road trip on Tuesday. They get 2 days off, right? You have a back-to-back, then you go up to Buffalo on Tuesday, so you have 2 days off to play the Buffalo Sabres, who are actually pretty confident right now. May not be as easy of a game as you probably would have expected it to be. But yeah, that's one I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on Tuesday night. But yeah, there we go. That's kind of it. I think this is growing pains for the Canucks. That's really what it comes down to. But Halak was definitely better in between the pipes than Demko was the other night in Philly. So take with that what you will. It may be a little bit more split evenly between the two as the season goes along. Again, there's a lot on the line here for Jim Benning and Travis Green. They're going to play the hot hand. And it could be Yaroslav Halak on Tuesday night. Again, call me crazy on that, but there is a chance that does happen. Moving on to another 7 o'clock game up in Boston, we got the Dallas Stars heading to Boston. Tyler Seguin making another return to the Bruins. And I think this is one of those things where there was a couple questionable plays in this game, and we'll get to it. But the goalies starting this game, it was Braden Holtby once again starting. He started down at MSG with the Rangers, and now he's starting again tonight. So no Hudobin quite yet. It seems like Holtby is kind of taking that starting role here early up against Jeremy Swayman, so we don't see Linus Ullmark to start for the Boston Bruins this season. Interesting ploy there, but I guess that is part of hockey. That's kind of how it works. And it's not like they play tomorrow night. They don't play. The Bruins don't play again until Wednesday night. Wednesday on TNT against the Flyers in Philly. So kind of interesting to see that kind of dynamic happening where they're going with Swayman. Are they going to go with Swayman again on Wednesday? I guess so, right? So we'll see. But for this game, that's what they went with. A key thing I want to talk about in this game, I didn't get to watch as much of this game as I would have liked, but the power plays were brutal tonight for both sides. The Bruins were 0 for 3 on the power play tonight. The Dallas Stars were worse. They were 0 for 5 on the power play. That lack of scoring for the Dallas Stars is quite concerning. The good news is you're seeing the depth scoring. You saw it the other night. What's his name? Peterson, right? Peterson and Fox are getting goals against the Rangers. And now you're seeing Luke Glendening getting a goal for the Dallas Stars. But we still have yet to hear anybody scoring in that top six. Where are the guys like Sagan, Robertson, Ben, Radulov, Pavelski? Any of them? Hello? Are you ready to start the season yet? Not a great start for the Dallas Stars in terms of scoring. They have 3 goals to the first 2 games of the season. And the Boston Bruins were just better. Brad Marchand got a penalty shot goal. He was getting a tug from Ryan Suter. Suter didn't have a great game. He had 4 penalty minutes tonight. Charlie McAvoy also had 4 penalty minutes, so 2 penalties for each of them. But Brad Marchand ended up being the first star of the game. He got that first goal of the game. Jake DeBrusk would score the game winner early on in the third period. And then an empty netter by Marchand. Now, that would be his second of the game, his second of the season. And I do want to mention that whole situation at the end. If you were listening, so Marchand's coming down with the puck, and Miro Heiskanen is coming in behind. He kind of tries to trip him with his stick coming back, and he kind of shrugs him into that left post on the empty net when he's putting it in. The Bruins announcer absolutely freaked out. You saw the play-by-play freaked out, and then the analyst guy was like, I don't know. I don't think it was that bad. But he's always been known to be a little bit of a homer for the Boston Bruins, and that's fine. I get it. He's very passionate and a huge Bruins fan, so I understand that. But I don't think it was as malicious as he was making it out to be. Kind of making Heiskanen out to be like this evil demon. It's a fast game, man. And I hate to say it. I'm kind of torn. I think this, he still thought the Stars had a chance to win, and he was going to do anything it took to give them that chance. So I understand it from both perspectives. But definitely, I thought his reaction was quite interesting because he was very livid about what he did to Marchand. But again, when you're talking about Marchand, again, it shouldn't matter what player it is, but in context, if we're talking about guys that maybe do cheap things, including licking other guys' faces in the playoffs, Brad Marchand, probably not the guy I feel the most bad for in that situation. But that's just me, right? Boston definitely didn't have a perfect game. They had a too many men penalty that was definitely could have been easily avoided. But again, it's the first game of the season at home. That stuff is going to happen. They have the McAvoy signing that may have been a little bit of a distraction this week. But overall, I think the Bruins played fairly well. Jeremy Swayman did very well in his debut this season. 27 for 28. Again, not bad. The Bruins got 40 shots on Braden Holtby, making it very difficult for him. So a good game overall for the Bruins. The Dallas Stars find themselves 0-2 though, or 0-1-1 to start their East Coast road trip. So kind of showing that Eastern bias early, but the Eastern Conference teams are winning. The Buffalo Sabres and the Columbus Blue Jackets, yes, they are included in that. They're both undefeated, 2-0. Now we have some games here that I really didn't get to watch. 2 in particular. The Tampa Bay game in Washington and Ottawa in Toronto. I did watch the overtime between Tampa and Washington. I watched none of the Ottawa-Toronto games, so I'm not going to get too far down that one. But the Tampa Bay Lightning go to Washington. They didn't have the best start to their season. They went to Pittsburgh, kind of laid in. Well, they were at home, banner raising night. They kind of laid a goose egg in that first game. They go up to Detroit and have a wild victory in overtime, a 7-6 victory. They had three times they were down. They were down by 3 goals twice in this game. They were down 3-0 and 6-3. Came back in both of those, and they end up winning the game in overtime. We saw something a little bit similar, just a lot less scoring in this one. Vitek Vanacek got the start for the Caps, and Andrei Vasilevsky got the start for the Bolts. Alexander Ovechkin would get his 3rd goal of the season, a typical Ovechkin goal. There you go. You can see Ovechkin getting on the board. And that was kind of really it for this game from what I actually saw. So it's hard for me to really talk about it, but I think overall it was a pretty close game back and forth. You see, Sergachev got a goal. He got a weird penalty in overtime, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but it's that new rule where you have that cross-checking thing, and Sergachev did cross-check him. I mean, no doubt about it, he cross-checked him, but like I said, that's a call we would have never seen last year or 5 years ago. It wouldn't have even been a thought. But that is something they are cracking down. That was Sergachev's first goal of the season, though, so congrats there. But overall, it was a pretty tight defensive game. That definitely changed in overtime, though, especially with Washington on the power play. A very lethal power play, but when it was 4-on-3, they almost looked lost because they didn't have that bumper guy down low, because it's usually a 5-on-4 regular power play, right? They usually have that extra guy. And not having that option, I think, totally diminished the Washington Capitals with what they do on the power play. It made it much more difficult for them to do what they do. And I don't know how much you practice 4-on-3 power play time, especially early in the season. I'm sure that's something that the Capitals will work on. Laviolette will focus on probably this week. Because they looked totally frazzled. They did not look like the Washington Capitals on that power play in OT. And unfortunately, it costed them. It was one of those things where the Tampa Bay Lightning were tired. Somebody threw it right into the breadbasket of Vasilevsky. I think it was Anthony Mantha. Just took a shot, went right in Vasi's glove. Defensive faceoff for the Lightning. A tie-up, and Stamkos all of a sudden takes the puck, and he's gone. He's going down the ice. And I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was either John Carlson or Dmitry Orlov back there. Might have even been Nick Jensen going one-on-one with Stamkos. You know that's going to be a recipe for disaster. Not to mention, there was a little bit of pressure. Victor Hedman was cruising down the ice to make it a 2-on-1. Ovechkin was kind of grabbing him, kind of like, no, I'm losing him a little bit. But he did keep a pretty good grip on him. But I think Vanacek was still kind of watching. He knew Hedman was there. When you got Stamkos and Hedman on a practical 2-on-1, that's going to be difficult. You knew it could be trouble. Stamkos would score his 3rd of this season, and he would win it in overtime with 15 seconds left in the overtime session. That was a huge win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Very resilient again. They were down in this game 1-0 throughout most of the second and third period. And they find a way to get one, and they find a way to win the hockey game. And not the prettiest fashion, but they find a way to win. And Tampa Bay has definitely come out slow to start the year. That is no question. Definitely been a problem here through the first 3 games. But at the end of the day, here they are. They're 2-1 on the season. And they just laid that big goose egg against Pittsburgh, who now looks like a pretty solid team. Pittsburgh, I'll talk about them in a minute. But Tampa Bay, man, they go to Washington. The Caps look pretty good. They handled the Rangers pretty well. Pretty good stuff so far from Tampa, despite that first game. This is a game I really didn't get to see much of. I'm not going to go too in-depth on this. The Ottawa Senators travel to Toronto. Brady Tkachuk is from what DJ Smith considered, the Christmas gift that can't be unwrapped yet. He's still getting back into game action, NHL action, getting some chemistry with his potential line mates in practice. So he is not ready to go quite yet. Anton Forsberg would start once again for the Ottawa Senators, with Jack Campbell being the starter for the Leafs. 7 o'clock matchup at Scotiabank Arena in downtown Toronto. The Maple Leafs came out of the gate really strong. I just made a video last night talking about the Rangers and the Leafs. It's hot tonight. Damn. The Leafs and the Rangers not having a great first period, not getting a good jump start. Well, I think either Sheldon Keefe figured that out, or, of course, he probably watched my video over the last couple of nights. They came out very strong in the first 8 minutes of the game, scoring 2 goals. Early in this one, Wayne Simmons would get a goal, his first of the season for the Leafs. Wayne Simmons and Alexander Kerfoot. So you're seeing some bottom 6 guys getting goals for the Leafs. Not too bad. Again, those were both in the first 8 minutes. Simmons a tip-in and a wrist shot from Kerfoot. And that would be it for the first period. Now, they were reversing the tables here on the Ottawa Senators, who had the hot start the other night and were up 3-0 in the Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa. Kind of flipping the script here. Second period, Josh Norris, his first of the season, a power play goal, would make it 2-1, cutting the lead in half. But the guy that everybody's been talking about in training camp would come out in the third period for the Leafs. The first star of the game, Michael Bunting, would score his first of the season, his first as a Leaf, and that would be how this game would finish up, a 3-1 victory for the Leafs. The Leafs, though, there is still some issues with this team. They were 0-3 on the power play tonight. Again, you talk about how vaunted that forward group is, how much they're paying them. They were 0-3 tonight, so definitely some concerns there. I don't think they were like how things were officiated the other night in Ottawa. They were able to get over that, show a little bit of maturity. I think that showed tonight, and they were able to come back and find a way to win a hockey game and kind of just forget about the past. I think that was really solid. And Jason Spezza, man, shout out to him from that interview the other night. Tavares was all, pissy and whatever, and Nylander was pretty okay. But Jason Spezza was like, man, it happens, just rolling it off. It is so hard to do, but you have to find a way to do that, especially in an 82-game schedule. You're getting pissed off in Game 2 of the season. Obviously, it matters, but you have to stay focused. And I think the Leafs kind of got, some of that Jason Spezza poise and confidence rubbed off on the team tonight, and it definitely helped them. Another thing I want to mention, a little detail, the face-offs. The Maple Leafs dominated 64.9% against the Senators tonight, who I think had 33% in the face-off dot. Not great there, but really good stuff from the Leafs overall. Again, I didn't get to watch much of this game, but I knew some of the storyline going into it, and they did a pretty good job. So, we're going to the other team out in that little area. We already talked about the Senators. We already talked about the Leafs. We got to talk about the Montreal Canadiens. They had their home opener tonight, all the player entrances and stuff like that. An original 6 matchup here against the New York Rangers coming into town. The Rangers lost their season opener at the Garden last night against the Dallas Stars. They were looking to rewrite the script. Igor Shesterkin was the starter with Jake Allen on the other side for the Habs. Chris Kreider would score his 3rd goal of the season. Not only did he score his 3rd of the season, but it was a 3rd tip-in goal, his 3rd tip-in goal of the season, and his 3rd power play goal of the season. They are all right from in front of the net. The Rangers have everything is going off of Kreider's stick, and it's going into the back of the net. He's getting the bounces. He's creating those opportunities, though, standing in front of the net. Really good stuff from Chris Kreider and the Rangers early. He's getting that production. They're going to need him this season for sure. We saw Nils Lundkvist get back into the lineup. He played the other night. Now this is the second game where he is in the lineup over guys like Jared Tenorti. So good stuff here early on from Nils Lundkvist. The New York Rangers ice time, though, that was something I kept an eye on. It was very top heavy. We weren't seeing a lot of the lower guys in the chart. Ryan Reeves and some of those other guys. Phillip Herronick and Alexis Lafreniere had a lot of ice time tonight. Well deserved, though. The way Phillip Herronick was, coming off the boards, beating the defenseman to the net, and kind of just going across the net, getting opportunities. Man, that shouldn't be happening if you're the Habs defense. I know they got some holes right now, but Romanov got absolutely cooked that one play by Herronick. Shout out to Phillip Herronick. He was good tonight. And again, Lafreniere, maybe in a different sense, but he was getting plenty of scoring opportunities in between the dots at the top of the circle as well. I think the Rangers, man, they keep playing like this. If they can avoid that early game shutdown, which again they did too, just like the Leafs, getting that early goal on the power play. It changes the entire complexity of the game. And we've seen that. I mean, as an Islander fan, that is to a T. The Islanders build up a 1, 2, 3 goal lead and then sit on that the whole game. You can do that in these types of games, and it just gives you that confidence. Unless the other team know, listen, we're here. We're here to kick your butt tonight. It sets that tempo. And a Habs team that has looked very vulnerable early on in the season, you get that early goal just to put that doubt in their head, that plant that seed of doubt in them early. They were never able to get out of their own head and get out of that. Overall, it was a pretty structured defensive game, but we did see plenty of opportunities, especially late in the third period. Igor Shesterkin kind of let go of the puck there in the final, minute? I think 2 minutes, 1 minute left. And Lindgren absolutely bowled Tyler Toffoli into the boards. That was quite interesting to see how that played out. If it weren't for Ryan Lindgren yelling at Shesterkin, Tyler Toffoli might have tied the game. And we may be talking about a 2-2 game going to overtime. Well, that's not how it worked out. The Montreal Canadiens at the end, puck is in the Rangers zone. Mika Zibanejad puts the puck up against the boards, and there's like 3, 4, there may have even been 5 Habs just standing around watching while Zibanejad just keeps the puck against the boards for a good 10, 15 seconds. And then obviously when the puck comes out, it goes right to, I think it was Kevin Rooney, and Kevin Rooney gets the empty netter, makes it 3-1 Rangers, and you could see the frustration. I don't know who slapped it right back into the net. That's not really a great look for the Habs. I get it, you're frustrated, but again, the Habs, you're 0-3 to start the season. You lost the season opener in Montreal, in Toronto against the Leafs. You lose your, another game on the road, just down the road in Buffalo. You should have thought, that's an easy victory. Yeah, you got cooked. 5-1 loss. And now you lose to the New York Rangers in your home opener. I don't know how much longer this is going to settle in Montreal. Yeah, they go on a little streak here. It's very hard to get out of a big losing streak in a very media-driven Montreal. They start this season 0-5, 0-6. It's going to be a really miserable season for this club. And you just re-signed Nick Suzuki, great, but this could be a long season ahead for the Habs. I'm just saying that now. All right, moving along, we got the Carolina Hurricanes heading to Nashville. The Carolina Hurricanes had a nice season debut the other night against the Islanders, cooking the Islanders at home 6-3. Now they had to go on the road for their first road matinee of the season. Actually, it was not a matinee, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central Time, in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena. Freddie Anderson and UC Staros were your starting goalies in this one. The theme was power play issues and power play woes, and we saw that in a couple of games earlier that I mentioned. We saw it again in this one. There were 8 power plays given out, not a single goal. 4 power plays for the Hurricanes, 4 power plays for the Preds, and no goals. Very interesting to see how that kind of happened. Rod Brind'Amour had a very balanced lineup in this game. I noticed that, and listen, it worked, right? It's one of those things. Hey, listen, you're going to keep doing it. If it works, you do it, right? So we saw that balanced approach, putting everybody out there, giving them some ice time. Obviously, Jacob Slavin led the way for the most part. Jacob Slavin led the way for the most part, but we saw a pretty balanced group out there. The Carolina Hurricanes, though, were able to get that late goal. That was pretty much it. We saw Jesper Fast get a goal. Ryan Johansson getting on the board. That's pretty important for the Predators. And then in the third period, with 6 minutes left on the dot, Andrei Svechnikov, he's had the hot hand. He got 2 goals the other night against the Islanders. He picks up his third of the season with 6 minutes left. Like I mentioned, they get that 2-1 lead. They just got to sit on that lead for 6 minutes. Teuvo Teravainen gets the empty netter, his second of the season from Pesce and Aho. It's 3-1 Carolina. You knew they were going to win this one. Not that I know of. There weren't any fights in this game like in the Seattle Kraken game. That was a big viral video the other night. I don't think there was any of that tonight, but again, that's beyond me. Philip Forsberg would score late. This is very similar to what we saw the other night against who came into town? The Kraken. They were down 4-2 in that game, just gave up the empty netter, and then Granlund put in a goal to make it a one-goal game again. So for 45 seconds, there was some hope, making it a one-score game again by Forsberg, but it was too little too late. Freddie Anderson would get the first star. Svechnikov the second star, as he was the guy that got the game winner at the end of the day, that empty net. Oh, no. Svechnikov got the second goal of the game. Yeah, okay. I'm not really sure why that was. And UC Saros still got a star. UC Saros did play well tonight. This was not really his fault tonight. This is one of those games he went 29 for 31. I mean, this is not a great start for the Preds. The Predators, not in the same boat as Montreal, but they're 0-2 to start the season, and these were both home games for them. Not really a great look to start the year for the Preds. The St. Louis Blues and the Colorado Avalanche, this game was a great game. This was a thriller, a 9 o'clock game, Eastern time, up in the Mile High City, 7 o'clock Central time. And, yeah, this was a great game because you saw the St. Louis Blues kind of fighting this game all the way through. Well, Colorado was really fighting this game, but St. Louis was just able to get the puck bounces, and they were like, hey, we're going to take the lead. Great, and we're going to hold it. Justin Falk would score 4 minutes into the game, making it 1-0. That was it for the first period. It was not a great first period by any stretch for the Avalanche. They got outshot 11-5. The Blues had the advantage. The starting goalies for this game, it was Jordan Binnington and Darcy Kemper. So we saw Binner in there for game one of the Blues and Kemper back in between the pipes. You also have to remember the Avalanche, due to this whole COVID situation, Nathan McKinnon is out of the lineup. He's still on COVID protocol. And Gabriel Landeskog has been suspended for 2 games. So he's out for this game. He'll be out for the next one. So 2 pretty big leaders, 2 really alpha energy guys out of the lineup for the Avalanche. That definitely made a difference in probably a game like this where it was getting a little bit frustrating. They probably could have used that presence in this one. The St. Louis Blues had the early goal. They outshot them. But Colorado came back in the second period. They had a great second period. They outshot the Blues 16-5, right? So they should be winning the game. No. They scored 1 goal, right? They gave up 2 more. It was 3-1 St. Louis at the end of 2 periods. So on the 5 shots, that they did score 2 goals. So I don't know if that's on Darcy Kemper or if that's on just maybe poor execution overall. Yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those nights for the Avalanche. They played a pretty good game tonight, and I think the announcers were pretty evident with that. They just couldn't catch those breaks. So like I said, Colorado had a better second period than the first, but they were still down. They dominated and they couldn't get it done. Braden Shen actually scored a goal in the second period. Shout out to him. He actually dislocated his finger shooting the puck. That was pretty nasty. And then things get interesting. So the the Avalanche are down 4-1, right? Braden Shen gets that goal. God, it is hot up here, guys. I apologize. The Avalanche are down by 3 goals. It's a 4-1 game. And with 5:30 left, it's a 3-goal game. Except the game still has 5.5 minutes left. Tyson Yost would get the party started. 14:36 into the period. A deflection goal makes it 4-2. And the Avalanche, all of a sudden, after that 4-on-4, they're starting to get their game, their mojo going. JT Compher, just under 2 minutes later, a wrist shot right from in front of the net. He was in the right place, right? And not a lot of coverage by the Blues. He puts it in. So that 3-goal lead erased now to a 1-goal lead. 2 quick goals by the Avalanche. And it looks like they're going to have an opportunity. The Blues actually iced the puck. And now the place is going nuts. The arena, I forgot, it's not Pepsi Center anymore. It's some other weird name. Let me know the name of the Avalanche arena down below if you've made it this far. Yeah, there you go. It looks like they're going to get some momentum. The building's going crazy. They score. Tyson Yost from in front of the net. Kind of a weird carom in front, but it goes in. And based off of reviews, they said they did call it a goal on the ice, but there was enough evidence to determine that Tyson Yost had kicked the puck into the net, which is not allowed in the NHL. You're not allowed to do that. And we saw something very similar in the Seattle Kraken's first game against Vegas earlier this week on Tuesday night. So that killed the momentum. Tyson Yost could have had 2 goals there within, 4 minutes? And, they still had 3 minutes. And I think that goal being called back just sunk the building for them. And unfortunately, they were not able to get one. Tyson Yost, the Avs were doing everything in their power. Everybody was flopping around, running into each other. It was absolute chaos. The Blues were running around with their head cut off, and it looked like this was going to be a tie game at some point. They weren't able to get it done. Tyson Yost got the puck from the corner. He swung the puck out from in front. Just not a great play from the boards. He swings it in the middle of the ice, and who is right there? He passes it right to Ryan O'Reilly, who inevitably puts the nail in the coffin. The former Colorado Avalanche scores his first of the season. A big goal that puts the nail in the coffin, a 2-goal lead. With 20 seconds left, the Colorado Avalanche dropped this game 5-3. This was a rough one for the Avalanche, a game they probably could have had, and they just let it slip from beneath them. But definitely a very interesting game, an exciting game to watch. But definitely frustrating for sure for the Avalanche. Despite how they played the other night against the Blackhawks, definitely it wasn't as easy for them tonight. So now we're getting to a game out on the West Coast. We got the Winnipeg Jets heading out to San Jose, a 10 o'clock Eastern start. Connor Hellebuyck against Adin Hill in this one. Those are your 2 starting goalies. I'm just going to check real quick to make sure. Yep, those were your 2 starting goalies. I was correct. Pierre-Luc Dubois, 4 minutes into the game, gets his first of the season. I knew, again, this is a guy, he scored the first goal in the preseason. You look at how jacked he has gotten this offseason. Dubois is ready to go. He is a man on a mission. 1-0 Jets. That would be it for the first period. It was a fairly quiet first period, but the Jets did get 10 shots compared to the San Jose Sharks 6. They just had that little bit of extra jump in the first. Second period, Andrew Kopp would score, making it 2-0, a shorthanded goal. Definitely a little bit of deflation in the building. You're seeing that momentum is just not going in the favor of the Sharks. But hey, you know what? 2.5 minutes later, Andrew Cogliano gets a shorthanded goal for himself, and it's a 2-1 game, cutting the lead in half. And just to add to that, Jasper Weatherby, the 23-year-old, 6'4" center, his first NHL goal, a power play goal, makes this game tied and knotted up at 2. Just over halfway into the second period, so we're tied going into the third. And Tomas Hertl gets on the board, making it 3-2 San Jose. Rudolph Balcers makes it 4-2. So we got ourselves a real hockey game here. The Sharks have definitely taken that momentum from that Cogliano shorthanded goal. Jansen Harkins keeps it a game late. I think there was less than 7 minutes left. Jansen Harkins, his first of the season, a slap shot, makes it 4-3, cutting the lead in half. But at the end of the day, it's a victory for the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks start the season 1-0. Really good game by the Sharks. They had 31 shots on goal compared to the Jets, 23. The Jets had problems on the power play tonight. They went 0 for 3 on the power play. And the Sharks found a way to get it done. They were 2 for 5 on the power play. So I guess, there's some good things to look at here for them in this one. The Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers. We had a pretty interesting game up in Edmonton tonight at Rexall Place. A lot of energy and emotion in this one early. Jacob Markstrom, the starter for the Calgary Flames, and Mike Smith, the starter for the Edmonton Oilers. A very physical first period. We saw a little bit of back and forth going on. Sean Monahan had no problem laying a couple of big hits. And then Zach Cassian kind of went back at him at the end of the period. Nikita Zadorov didn't like it, so they were kind of jousting back and forth, talking to each other in the penalty box from each side of the box. Very, very interesting stuff. Keeps it very entertaining. I did like seeing that. And like I said, just a very electric game overall. Speaking of electric, Connor McDavid scored 2 goals tonight, both on the power play. And the Edmonton Oilers, man, they were looking pretty solid tonight. Just to cap it off, Connor McDavid did get an empty netter to make it 3 goals on the night, 3 goals on the season, a hat trick for McDavid in game number 1 of the season. And just great stuff overall. The Oilers getting some production from the depth. Derek Ryan getting a goal. Jesse Puljujarvi, his 2nd of the season. A lot of things to like here for the Edmonton Oilers early in this season. A 5-2 victory. Now the Flames did get some goals from Mangiapane and Lindholm. They did score on the power play, but at the end of the day, the better team found a way to win. 2 for 4 on the power play for the Jets. The Flames were 1 for 4. That could have helped them out in this one. Fortunately, they came up just short. Back and forth game, but at the end of the day, it was Puljujarvi getting that goal. That really set the tempo for the rest of this game. Lindholm got that goal early in the 3rd period, a power play goal, and it seemed like, all right, we're going to turn the tide in this game until Puljujarvi got that goal and kind of shut out any of that momentum. He scored that goal less than a minute later. It was 26 seconds later, Puljujarvi scored after that Lindholm goal, and then McDavid with the empty netter just to cap this one off. A really solid game for the Oilers. Like I said, seeing that depth scoring is huge. That's something that this team has desperately lacked. Huge win overall for the Oilers. And don't look now, but they got 2 wins here against their 2 big rivals in Vancouver and Calgary early in the season. Good start for the Oilers, right? We'll see how it plays out. I don't know necessarily how good those teams were, but still, it does matter at the end of the day. Now, we know what happened the last time. The Minnesota Wild and the Los Angeles Kings met last season. They were in the same division. It was the young rookie phenom from Minnesota, the Kirill Kaprizov, kind of coming out party. And we saw him get that overtime winner, a breakaway goal on Jonathan Quick. Not too different of a result tonight. The Minnesota Wild get the victory. They barely came out of a game in Anaheim last night, a game they did not play their best at all. Kaprizov very frustrated at points. Just Anthony Stolarz, they ran into a hot goalie, and they found a way to score. I think it was with 7.5 seconds left, and they find a way to win the game. We saw something pretty similar in this game. They found a way to win. Victor Arvidsson would make it 1-0 early, a power play goal for the LA Kings. And again, Doughty and Kopitar getting the assist. We're seeing those guys come up often early this season. That is quite concerning for the West Coast teams because we haven't heard any names like Byfield or Turcotte yet, or Kachev. Things could get very interesting in LA. I'm excited to see what they do, but we're seeing those core guys really start off the season well for the Kings. We saw some depth scoring from the Minnesota Wild. That was another big talking point for them. Freddie Gaudreau, Victor Rask, and Ryan Hartman got goals in that 2nd period to make it a 3-1 lead for the Wild. Andrei Kopitar would score again to make it his 4th of the season. Doughty's already got 5 assists. And hey, you know what? Jonathan Quick, man. Jonathan Quick gets an assist tonight. So there you go, Jonathan Quick. Jonathan Quick versus Cam Talbot. That was your tandem. Actually, did Kakkonen play? No, it was Cam Talbot. So Cam Talbot and Jonathan Quick. Overall, a pretty solid game. I didn't get to watch much of this game. I was watching the college football game. What was it? Tennessee Volunteers and I already forgot the other team's name. It's not good. It's been a long day, guys. But the Minnesota Wild were not great tonight, but they found a way to win. That's all that matters. It doesn't really matter because they got the 2 points. You could get 2 shots on net. Those 2 goals go in, and the 50 shots from the other team don't. You win the hockey game, and you get the 2 points. It doesn't matter. And I think that's kind of what happened tonight. I mean, LA scored on the power play, 1 for 4. The Wild took a lot of penalties. They had 5 penalties tonight. Not their best game in that regard. But again, like I said, they just found a way to stick it out. And I don't know how well you're going to be able to do that with teams like the Avalanche, the Golden Knights on the West Coast, St. Louis. But again, you just got to live through the game. They're 2-0 out of this road trip so far. They don't play again till they play at home. So they play their home opener on Tuesday. So they have Sunday and Monday off. They're back at home, and they play their home opener against the Winnipeg Jets, which is not going to be an easy game. But then from there, if I'm taking a look here, it seems like they're going to be home for a little while. Yeah, so they play Anaheim at home next Saturday. So they have pretty much, they have one game in a week, which could be good for the Wild, could be bad. And they play Nashville, so they have a little bit of a homestand. They come out with 4 points, 2-0 on this road trip. You really can't complain too much if you're the Minnesota Wild. But with that said, for a team that has high expectations this season, you do want to see a little bit more from them. So, that is it, guys. 14 games on the docket tonight. Unbelievably crazy. We just hit the hour mark for this video. Guys, let me know what you think of tonight's action. It was a pretty crazy night. Obviously, with that game in Colorado, that was a big one. The Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers, the Battle of Alberta, that's always a good game. And then we saw some interesting ones like Montreal. What is this going to mean for the Habs? Are they going to do any knee-jerk reaction moves? Are they going to stay the same? That's the kind of stuff we're going to look at. And guys, don't look now, but Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Buffalo are all undefeated with at least 2-0 records. Pittsburgh 3-0. So teams that I gave a little bit of heat for early in the season, they've done really well. So got to give props to those teams. I will see you guys again tomorrow night for tomorrow night's video. Guys, there is only one game though tomorrow night. So definitely a lot different than tonight. I'm definitely going to get more of a break. It is a Dallas heading to Ottawa. That is the only game on the docket. The Dallas Stars, after a back-to-back year, they're playing 3 games in 4 nights. The Dallas Stars. It could be a rough one tomorrow night in Ottawa. Matinee game at 5 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned for that one. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this video. And guys, it's been a late night. I will see you guys next time.